Hello, this is Mr. Jared, and in this video tutorial, we will be 3D modeling this object in SolidWorks. So the first thing I'm going to take note of is where my origin is, and you can see the origin is located on top of this raised up cylinder, right in the middle of it, okay? And the second thing would be my units, and here I am in IPS. Now, this part itself is a little tricky to draw. I've seen students attempt this in all sorts of different ways. I myself have attempted it in all sorts of different ways. And I would say there's no right or wrong way to get the origin located right here. I'm going to show you one way that I found the easiest, at least for me personally. But of course, if you try to put the origin in different locations, there's different approaches. But every single time that I have drawn this, it's taken me 6 different features to do this. So honestly, if I do it starting back here first, or if I do it starting down here, or if I do it starting up here, always the same amount of steps for when I have drawn this. Okay, now since this is a little bit confusing and you can't really tell what's going on down here, I am going to show you what this looks like before we get started. So you can kind of see that these are holes, they go all the way down through. And if I rotate this around, you can actually see it's flat on the whole entire bottom. And from the side view of this, you can tell that these curved parts come down and they are tangent with the bottom. Now, as far as the top goes, looking straight down, this rectangular piece actually comes and it's tangent with this big cylinder right here as well. The front of it is also tangent. And these two pieces, or this two angled lines rather, they kind of just disappear into here. Okay, so what I'm going to do to get started is I'm actually going to pull this to my other screen, and I will make a new part in SolidWorks. I'm going to make sure that I am in IPS, which my computer has defaulted to, and we're going to try to put the origin right where it is in that picture. So I'm going to actually sketch on my top plane first, and I'll get my circle tool. And like I said, you have to do this in several steps. So you might be able to get away with doing 4 sketches or 5 sketches, but I've always done this in only 6 features at minimum. Okay, 6 features at minimum. So first, I am going to measure out this circle, and it says there that it has an overall diameter of 3.75. And I'm simply going to extrude this. Okay, and I actually want to go down because I want the origin on top. So I'll change that to down, and it says that the overall height is 2.25. Okay, 2.25. We'll hit the green check. So there's my starting cylinder so far. That's from the origin all the way down to the bottom. And now what this allows me to do is actually sketch on the bottom itself. So if I rotate around and sketch on the bottom, okay, if I hit Control 8, it's going to rotate me to this. Now, you might draw it looking at the actual part, but what I can tell you is when you go to a 3D view, you are actually upside down. So if I hit Control 8, I'm looking at it upside down, which means I'm kind of going to be drawing backwards. I actually like to hit Control 5, and what that does is it gives me an aerial view. So now I am on top of this, as you can see, looking down at it. So Control 5 gives me a better view, okay? Now from here, I'm going to be able to draw this just like I kind of see in the actual picture itself. So I'll just draw a line straight across, okay? I'll go up and I'll get my 3-point arc, and I'll just click here, kind of click around here, something like that. I'll do that on the other side as well. And of course, you can mirror this instead of drawing both of them, but I think it's just as easy to do this. So I'll come up, something like that. All right, now all these connection points to these curves are tangent. So I'm going to hold in Shift and select both of these lines, select tangent, click off in the blank space to deselect, select both of these lines again and select tangent, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay. Now, this bottom line here is actually tangent to this inside cylinder. So I'll select both of those as well and hit tangent. Okay. This bottom line is also centered. So if I move my mouse over this line and pause, you'll notice that this yellow midpoint dot pops up. So if I select that midpoint and my origin, I can make those vertical with one another. I can do the same thing for this line. Okay, so the midpoint dot and the origin, I'll make those vertical. Okay, I can make both of these arcs equal to one another. And if you really want to, you can also make both of these angled lines equal to one another. Okay, so this whole thing should move pretty symmetrical right now. So now we can go ahead and dimension this. And as far as the overall height, so going all the way back, that is going to be that 4.12 that you see. So this is going to be a little confusing. But the 4.12 that we see is right here. So that's from the very front of this all the way back to kind of where that connects in. So I just drew a straight line across because I don't know where this goes. So I'm just drawing a straight line across, and that's 4.12. And since that's going to be on the inside, that straight line won't affect anything. Okay, and now these curved corners are actually going to be raised up cylinders later on, so that'll be a second drawing. So right now we have to know what that radius is of that curved corner. Okay, well, it says it has a diameter of 2.25. That's when it's a complete circle. So what we need to do is just divide that by 2. And you can either do that in your head or have SolidWorks do it for you. Okay, and the last thing here before I pull this back over to my other screen, this random number that we get down here, 3.562, that is actually, if I follow that extension line, that's saying it's from the origin over to the center of one of these holes, okay, or one of the center points of these arcs. So let's do that one first while we're thinking about it, and that is 3.562. Okay, so that moved it all in. The radius of this is 2.25/2, so we are dividing it by 2. So that is actually 1 1/8 or 1.125. You can see that over here on the left side of my screen. Here it just rounds it, which is perfectly fine. And we still have 2 blue angled lines, so if you click and hold on a dot, so you had to get off of your dimension tool. I hit escape, sorry about that. If you click and hold on one of these blue dots, you can see it still moves in or out. So what's going to define this is the length of that line up here. Now, that length of that line is actually going to be the same measurement as the width of this inside piece. And if I follow, you can kind of see my corner here. If I follow straight up, there'll be an extension line, and it looks like this is kind of like a crosshair where a whole bunch of intersections are. I follow that over, you can see that again, and it goes down. So what that's basically saying is from here to here is the same measurement as from there to the outside of here, which is 3.75. So you kind of have to follow these extension lines and read some measurements elsewhere. I know it is like a maze every once in a while to find the measurements, but you do need to follow those paths and try to learn how to read a drawing the best you can. So this says it is 3.75. Okay, now I am not going to draw my circles here yet. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'll hit the Features tab and extrude. And if I hit Control 7 or rotate around, I should be able to see what I'm doing now. Okay, I don't want to go down. I actually want to go up. Okay, and the thickness here is 0.75. 0.75. Green check. So if I hit Control 7 now, you can see I'm at a better view. And the front of it, this piece right here, is in the correct spot. If we would have been drawing from the bottom, we actually would have been drawing like this, upside down, and that does get confusing. So it is now in the correct spot. All right. So from here, I'm not going to draw these cylinders yet. We can just do those later, but I'll just move ahead and draw the more complicated parts. Okay, so I'll hit the Sketch tab and sketch, and here I want to draw my big arcing curved back pieces. So it's asking us to select a plane. So if I hit this drop down, we're looking for something that goes right through the middle, and that's going to be our right plane. So I'm sketching on my right plane. I'll hit Control 8 so I'm on a side view. Okay, and I'm going to be drawing that big curved part right here. So first, I'll get my 3-point arc, click on this little corner. I'll kind of just click up here somewhere and click. All right, now we don't know where the other one starts or stops. So for right now, what I'll do is I'll just continue the top just by doing that, my 3-point arc, and then I'll bring that thing down somewhere down in here. Okay, so we don't really know where this starts or stops, but we can figure that out here shortly. So let's fix this up first. What you can see on the picture and what I said at the beginning of this whole entire thing is the bottom of this and this curved are tangent. So I selected both of those and I select tangent. Since this connects from a curve to a curve, that's also tangent, and this one needs to be tangent. And then you can also see that we got two center points out here. And on the picture, if you follow where the dimension arrow comes from, it comes from the same center point. So that means both of these curves or arcs, those are actually concentric. They share the same center point. You can also see in this picture, and I'm going to bring this back over just to show you, you can also see in this picture that the center points of both these curves are straight across from the center of this hole, which is also straight across from the start and stop points of this arc. So that means what we can do here is select the center point, hold in Shift. We can select one of these dots. You don't need to select both, but you can if you'd like. And the center point, and we're going to make them horizontal. And it's going to rotate and extend this up, so now that's straight across from there. Now that that's all in place, let's draw our circle up here. Okay, and let's kind of finish this off. So you got to keep in mind that this arc itself eventually is going to blend in and be tangent with this middle cylinder. So that means this line right here actually continues straight and stops right in the middle of the cylinder, which in this case is that origin. So we're going to be bringing that over to here, and it's going to be vertically aligned with the origin. And then we'll just go straight down and straight back. So from here, I'm just going to draw a horizontal line, and then straight down all the way to the bottom, and then back to my starting point. Okay, now right here, this also needs to be tangent. So I'll select that line, select this line, and I'll make those tangent. And it should bring those down a little bit. You do want to make sure that this is a horizontal line, okay, because if not, it's going to be on an angle. And that this line itself is going to be coincident with the origin. So select that line, select the origin, and select coincident. So now it is straight up and down. It can't move left or right. It can still move up or down. Okay, so everything's pretty much good right now as far as relations. Now we just need to go ahead and dimension this. So it says this arc has a radius of 3.19. It says this smaller one has a radius of 1.33. And then that hole on the inside is actually 0.94. Okay, so now everything's fully defined. I'll go over to my Features tab and Extrude. I'm going to go to a 3D view so you can see what we're doing. So since we drew on that right side plane that cuts through the middle, we're actually going to be extruding out this way, but we also want to extrude that way. So I'm going to change this from blind to mid-plane. And once again, we need to do that overall thickness of 3.75. And when I hit the green check, this should be tangent right here, which it is. Right now, the only problem is we still have this big piece here. Okay, so how do we go about cutting that out? Well, if you try to draw off one of these flat surfaces here and cut back through, you'd be cutting through this. You could make a plane, an offset plane, and bring it over here. Or what we can do is this flat surface, we could actually draw a rectangle inside and cut up. Okay, so that's what I'm actually going to be sketching on. I'm going to sketch on this flat surface right here. I'll hit Control 8. And now I'm at a top view. So I'll just use my rectangle tool. I'll click the back of this. And I'll click this line here, because that's where the bottom of the curve is. And if you're looking at your picture, you can see from the outside to this line, it's 0.75, and so is the other side. And I'm actually going to rotate around so you can see where I am drawing. See, I'm kind of drawing in the middle of this. Now I'll go to my Features tab and hit Extrude Cut. And I want to make sure I'm going up, not down, so switch this. And you can just select Through All and green check. So now we cut out that middle piece. So now the easy parts are left. We are going to sketch right here on top of this again. Hit Control 8, rotate around. Here I'll get my circle tool, and instead of trying to find that center, what you can do is actually move your mouse over the curve and the center pops up. And now we can move right back down to that curve and click on the dot that pops up, and that's going to be the exact same size as the curve. So the nice thing here is you probably don't even have to dimension this. So you can see both of them are fully defined already because they're connected. Go to the Features tab and hit Extrude, and I'm going to raise those up. Now the only trick with this is you got to keep in mind we are drawing on top of that bottom surface. So we're actually drawing here. Okay, the overall height of these cylinders are 1.32 from the very bottom. Well, we already went up 0.75. So we need to actually put in this measurement minus this measurement. So in here, it'll be 0.75 minus, or sorry, it is 1.32 minus 0.75. Okay, and green check. Now we can sketch on top of here, not on the small cylinder, on top of here. We'll hit Control 8, and I'm going to draw my inside circles. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And again, you might need to move your mouse over the actual curve for those center points to pop up. Now, both of these small circles, they are going to be the same size, so you can make them equal, and then you can dimension all of these. So the inside one here for the small ones, 1.125 or 1 1/8, and for the bigger one, that measurement is 1.875, so 1 5/8. Okay, or 7/8. Sorry, 7/8. 7/8. All right, now we'll go to Features tab, Extrude Cut, and let's change this to Through All. Okay, then it'll go all the way down through, and you can see since we're sketching up on top, even though it's way up here and floating, it will cut down through all of this. With the green check, and there we go. We have the actual shape. So let's change our material and check our mass. The material here is brass, and that's one of these defaults. We can go to the Evaluate tab in Mass Properties. We should get 17.92 pounds. As far as the center of mass, we should have 0 for the X, because it's symmetrical left to right. For the Y, it should be negative 1.16. And for the Z, it should be negative 1.27. So if you got that, you can save this and move on to the next one. If you did not, please problem solve and continue to try to work on this one and figure out where you went wrong. But as you can see, in the very end of this, again, I finished with 6 features.